Hey, do you teach yoga? Have you ever trained to lead yoga classes, to be a yoga therapist? Have you ever owned a yoga studio? Maybe even just wondered what it was like for the women and men up there in front of the room on their mats, leading you through endless Surya Namaskars, down dogs, and pranayamas galore? Well, these are their stories, and mine. I'm Rebecca Sebastian, a 20-year yoga teacher, 10-year yoga therapist, yoga studio owner, and co-founder of a yoga-focused nonprofit. I've done a lot in the yoga world over the last 20 years, pretty much everything except had a water cooler. You know, a place to share stories, talk about struggles, successes, and find other people who do the same thing that I do. Welcome to Working in Yoga, a podcast and substitute water cooler for yoga folks to connect and build community, to share our unique profession, our challenges, and our journeys with the world. Welcome to Working in Yoga. This week on the podcast is one of the most fascinating threads I have ever pulled on in a podcast series. What philosophical concepts do we need to consider when we talk about AI, its use, and how it will impact our futures? I typically don't define yoga terms on the podcast. I know a good portion of my listeners are yoga professionals, so even if we reference a concept in Sanskrit that you're not immediately familiar with, I know that most folks know people who can help with those definitions. But this podcast references the idea of samskaras a lot, and within the first 5 minutes of me and Mandi talking. So here is a working definition of samskara direct from Mandi. Now, when I tell you that I called Mandi up so that we could build this working definition together, I have to say that the conversation between the two of us migrated between so many different topics because we know each other pretty well. Many of which of those topics were based on our habits, our grooves of thinking in our brain. And that is essentially what a samskara is, a thought pattern in the brain based on our past that when repeated gets a groove that is more and more pronounced over time. And yoga works to lessen those thought grooves. So in the context of what Mandi and I talk about, we are asking the question, does AI have samskaras? You can find out more questions like this on Working in Yoga's discussion guide for this podcast series, which is linked in the show notes. And before we begin, will you do me a favor and go ahead and like and subscribe to the podcast from wherever you're listening? This is essentially us throwing a bone to the algorithm so that more folks find us and join in the conversation around the water cooler. And finally, I want to remind you that I have an online book club for us that we're registering for right now. I run book clubs a little bit differently. We pick one book and read it over the course of 6 weeks. And each week we unpack the discussion topics from that book and chat together. Now, the learning for this book club is led this time by Colleen Sanders, who is both a friend of mine and the podcast. And you can find her episode on the podcast called Can You Be the Perfect Activist? Linked in our show notes as well. I will be doing the yoga portion, but mainly we'll be doing a little bit of light movement with some skillful pranayama and meditation moments in order to set our brains up for success as we process the topics of the book. Find out all the details in the show notes or email me, rebecca@workinginyoga.com, to find out more. Okay, now let's not wait any longer. Here is my conversation with Mandi King. Hey friends, welcome to Working in Yoga. Okay, so this week on the podcast, I have truly my friend, Mandi King. Mandi, I don't know if I text anyone else about music as much as I text you about music. Mandi, will you tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Sure, gladly. Thank you for having me, Rebecca. My name's Mandi King. I live on Yankton land, what is known as Spencer, Iowa. I've been teaching yoga for 8 years, but I've been practicing for about 21 years. Started off, of course, with the physical aspects. And through that, just kind of knew there was something deeper with the yoga philosophy I wanted to explore. Could not find a teacher that was suitable for what I was looking for. And I don't mean like I was trying to pigeonhole someone into that, but I already had like a personal training certification. I had all that anatomy background, which I think is great to continue with that. But I wanted to just focus on the yoga philosophy. And at 300, I couldn't find something that was matching that. And in 2020 happened upon yoga philosophy by Dr. Sham Ranganathan. And so I've been studying with him for the last 4 years. And it's really revolutionized, his translation has really revolutionized the way that I understand yoga philosophy, the way that I apply it in my own life. I've seen the impacts on my family and the way that they are engaging with things. And so, yeah, I teach not only in Spencer, but kind of go throughout down to Royal. It's about 15 minutes from here, up to Milford. It's about 15 minutes from here. So just kind of traverse around this portion of Iowa and do some stuff online too. So, yeah.
Dave, Mandy, you and I are going to talk about AI and tech and yoga. And part of why I wanted to have this particular conversation with you is because I want to push into like the philosophical aspect of the conversation as well. Because, like, okay, so AI is tricky, right? Like, it does so much for us that's good, but also we have to think about things like environmental ramifications and all these other things. And so I'm curious first, are you an AI user? Secondly, how comfortable are you with AI just in general? Does it creep you out? Do you love it? Like, tell me more.
Yes, I use it. Essentially, it's a sounding board for the times I don't have a human nearby to work around philosophical aspects of topics I'm considering. That being said, uh, I'm not sure how comfortable I am with it, in that
All right.
whatever we put into it is what's going to be reflected back to us. So, in a way, it's another reinforcement of our samskaras, our habits and patterns, physical, mental, whatever it might be, that keep us stuck. And then AI has its own samskaras from, whatever's on the internet, whatever access it has to books, articles. So it's just something I think that could be a tool, but like any tool, we can't let it have power over us. We have to remember our own power.
Okay, so that's a really interesting take on it. Like this idea of AI having some scars, because it's feeding off of us and we're dumping all our stuff, all those patterns that we have onto the internet, which is, I mean, that's maybe a whole other podcast about people use internet as their diary, right? But like, so we're dumping this all on the internet. AI is pulling from that. Oh my God. So talk so much more about that. Like, of course it would have like
Yeah,
those patterns. Yeah.
exactly. Well, even when I ask it questions about yoga philosophy, what it shares back to me is a colonized understanding of yoga philosophy. So right off the bat is a problem, right? It takes that ethical quotient out of yoga, which, you know, starting off with 1.2 is yoga is the control of the moral character of thought. There's an inherently moral quotient, the yama principle, but the tendency is for that to kind of get erased somewhere in the process. And so this AI, it does the same thing. And so what's also interesting about AI and that quotient is like I am teaching it too. Like,
Yeah.
so I'm telling it no, there's a moral quotient here, which if the robots take over, maybe there'll be moral robots. It's like the fun little weird fantasy sci-fi part of myself. But uh it so I think that it has potential, but I think it's potential we need to be aware of our own samskaras first, and then we need to be aware of these greater societal internet samskaras, and then we need to, because until we can really understand that there's a lot we don't understand, we're just going to stay stuck. And so the decolonized aspect of that, and the way, even like it just says, oh, well, yoga's calming the mind. Well, that's a quotient, I mean, a portion of that, but there's so much more, right?
Yeah.
Like we have to be actors in our own lives. And I think AI can offer immediate gratification, but it doesn't solve anything. It's still up to us to be the problem solvers. It's still up to us to be the critical thinkers, the logical reasoners. And if we're just depending on that to do it for us, it's just going to maybe create its own issues, not only in our personal lives, but potentially beyond. So,
So I just need to tell you right now that my brain will never forget the thought that someday AI, which may be our overlord, needs to liberate itself.
yeah, weird, right?
Like, whoa. But also, yeah, like if humans are on a path of liberation, right? Like allegedly, that's the goal here to some degree for those of us who are doing the yogic path. Like, and we're like, whoa, oh my God, this is a Blade Runner moment.
What if
We're
AI,
about 5 minutes in.
what if AI achieves it before we do?
The likelihood of that being true, actually, it seems like because it has less of the emotional component that we humans have, right? Like, so we know, and yoga talks about how our emotions mess with us. Like,
Yeah.
AI doesn't have that disadvantage.
It has the objectivity quotient that we
Yeah.
need to have to be able to understand controversies. Uh, so like, and we don't tend to toward that. We tend to just be stuck in that, singular point of view. Whereas, but also it depends on where is that information coming from because there's a lag. It's not
Yeah.
updated quickly.
Yeah.
Um, and it depends on what it has access to. So there still needs to be a human quotient at this point, if you ask me, because it can't do that work for us. There's nuance there that we need to engage with. And that's the other part of it, right? Like yoga is relationship. We can have a relationship with AI,
Yeah.
but it needs to be responsible relationship. And once that we just let it do the work and we're not choosing for ourselves, then we are no longer yoga practitioners. We are AI
Yeah.
practitioners. So
What does a responsible relationship with AI look like?
to me, it's not taking what it gives back to you at face value.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh, Having to research beyond. I don't know if you've ever doubled a recipe on there, but it's not to
No.
be trusted. Yeah, it's not like you to do work beyond what it gives you. You need to go deeper, look wider. Um, and so we need to be able to have that quotient that it won't think of if it doesn't have the correct prompts or the access. So yeah. Was there part of your question I didn't answer?
There's
Okay.
more that I want to talk about from what you just said. Like let's pull it in a little bit into the yoga space specifically. Like so we work within an industry, we have a particular job. How do you think AI can help us in our job? And what do you think it's probably taking over from us in the next 10 years? So pros and cons essentially.
Yeah, yeah. So I have not used it for building a class as far as physical aspects. Um, I have used it, as I said, as a way to kind of bounce around ideas and kind of get what I call like a skeleton of an idea that then like I add the meat to, right?
Yep.
Um, so I think it can help us develop ideas for, say, whatever we want to share with people that day, or, even if someone has a question, it might be something that we come back to. We can, research, investigate on our own. I don't know. I mean, sometimes I hear some people say, oh, maybe AI can be a way that I can get therapy without having to go to a therapist. And I'm just like, I don't think it's right back into that samskara issue, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so I think I actually asked AI what if you want to hear it. I said, I
Yes, I do.
asked so I asked it, what it does for us. And it says it gathers. Oh, wait, excuse me. Sorry. Trying to find the correct spot. Um, So it says AI gathers its information from vast databases that include books, articles, publicly available websites, and other digital texts. However, it doesn't have direct access to real time internet. It says that I lost that. Sorry. Okay. So it says that while I don't learn in the way a human does, I can adapt to your language, refine my understanding of how you approach yoga, and act as a mirror reflecting back to you uh, your whatever it might be, your language. I can help you clarify and refine so that I echo your ideas better. And what's really interesting about that is like in yoga, the mind is the mirror, right? So it's reflecting our past to us, but without our discernment and responsible action, we're letting that past be what's in front of us instead of actually taking in what's in front of us. And so I think that that we don't have a third party then in that process to kind of go, well, what about this? Well, what about that? Always. Sometimes it comes up if we ask the right questions.
Yeah.
That's the key, right? So as much as self-awareness we have is how much self-awareness AI is going to have, I think. And that's dependent on time, place, so many things.
So this makes me think of like the difference between somebody who's facilitating something and somebody who's teaching something, right? Like, so like a facilitator can mirror back what's happening in your brain, like you're like, oh, I get this concept, and then they'll just facilitate your ability to think more deeply. But a
Mhm.
teacher, like a true teacher, and I don't know why we push against this idea that our job is teaching, but it is. We teach people a thing. Like a
Mhm.
teacher helps you on a different level, on a deeper level, like allows you to shift your perspective in a way. So AI can only facilitate, right? But it can't really teach us.
Well, it depends on the questions we ask. There have been some
Yeah.
times that it's taught me some things that I didn't think about because I asked the right
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
But we have to be willing to ask questions and not just know. And I think knowing that idea that we know is that kind of false security that we all egoically and samskarically rest upon. And if we can more be in that space of investigation, curiosity, then we have that potential. But even so, even if it is teaching us, we have to be receptive to the teaching too, and not just get mad or rejected or, so
Yeah.
it, yeah. And yeah, we are teaching, but not all yoga students look at it as that either. Like, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes
Yeah.
we are the tapas. We are the challenge that is being offered as far as like, what about this point of view? And not everyone's open to that. They just want the experience or whatever. So, which AI,
So it can,
go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
Well, AI can offer an experience if people want that for sure.
Yeah.
To make it something that challenges us, encourages us to think deeper, wider, we're the motivators of that. It's
Yeah.
not to just do it itself, I don't think.
Okay. So riddle me this. My first question for you, how do you feel about online yoga teaching? Like valid, good, seeing videos, or do you not like it at all?
Um, Personally, as a teacher, I'd rather be in the room with people. I can see more, uh, take on more of what's going on. I just feel like stuff
Yeah.
gets lost on a screen. But interestingly, during COVID, I asked some of my practitioners who I was meeting with online, do you feel like there's less competition in the room because it's only you? And they said yes, which I thought was really cool because then
Yeah.
they're focusing on themselves, but also that's part of a relationships we need to pay attention to as well, right?
Yeah.
Um, so, but then also I have clients that aren't around me, that this is how I work with them. So I do think it definitely has a benefit if there's someone, and all the work I've done with Sham is via Zoom.
Yeah.
So it offers access where little old me in Podunk, Iowa doesn't have it.
Yeah.
But it has its limitations as far as physical practice goes, for sure, I think. There's something about being
Okay.
in a room with people.
Yeah. Agree 100%. I want to push on this idea though. Okay, so if we feel like online does have some legitimacy, AI currently has the tech that if I fed to it, study yoga with Adrienne on YouTube, build me a YouTube channel that is made of a fake person with a fake voice doing YouTube videos to make money, isn't it a teacher?
It certainly could be. Yeah. Is it a the right teacher?
Is it a good teacher?
Yeah. I mean, it can be a starting spot. It maybe isn't the place to stay. And ideally, through yoga, we are becoming our own teacher. We're not relying
Yeah.
on anyone else. So, I mean, maybe, yeah, maybe that's the place to start. Um, for some, it's like how I started with asana practice, that was like the back door most of us come in through, I think.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
it doesn't like, if we're really practicing, it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop ever. So, yeah, I think it has its benefits. I think it has its potential. I don't think it's going to replace what it is to actually have a warm human in the room.
Yeah. Okay, so I've been telling everybody in this series the Furby story. I don't know if I told you this already. Did I tell you the Furby
Go
story
ahead, though.
already?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. Just to review for listeners, here's the Furby story. My daughter got a Furby for Christmas. Furby's a tiny stuffed animal and it has like a microchip in it, and she can talk to it. And she can say to the Furby, "Hey Furby, chill time." And Furby will lead her through simple stretches, guided breathing, positive affirmations. And when I tell you that Furby is good, good enough I would hire Furby to set Furby in front of the class in my studio, I was like, we can already be replaced at what we are selling and offering right now, today. Furby could replace one of my teachers, especially for people who have low expectations who are coming into a practice and don't know what to look for. So I want to know what you think about Furby.
Um, I mean, I guess in ways, I hope to work myself out of a job in
Yeah,
that I'm encouraging people to do this on their own and like really, be devoted to the practice, and I mean philosophical there. I don't necessarily mean physical. Um, and so if your daughter turning on Furby every day is her being devoted to her own practice, like who am I to judge that?
yeah,
So, I mean, and this comes back to like the sustainability of the yoga industry in itself. It was never built for that, right? So it just brings it all into like very strong relief of like yeah.
are we sustainable? Like, if Furby can take my job, which Furby can't take my job, Furby can't take your job, but if, like, an entry level yoga teacher, say, if Furby can take their job, are we sustainable as an industry in 10 years?
Yeah, well, I think the question of sustainability too has to kind of bump up against responsibility to the
Yeah.
to the practice itself versus capitalizing on it and potentially bastardizing it. And so what does that mean? Depends on where your area of study is and also whether or not you're trying to keep a brick and mortar open. Like
Yeah.
it's very real, you know, world questions that come into that. And like Sham says, life is often a hierarchy of bad options. We're just trying to get to the better options.
Of course he says that. Oh my God. Shout out to Dr. Shyam Ranganathan right now. Of course.
For real,
That's what he
for
says.
real. I've been actually thanking him a lot this week, and just like how what he teaches has offered me a more level resting space as we're going through all this turbulence here in our state. So, yeah, yeah.
So the sustainability of us as an industry. And I'm going to push on that question a little bit more, partially because did I tell you about Hotworks? Let me tell you about Hotworks. It's this other example that I've had throughout this sort of series is that each sort of major town has a like locals love us or a, here's our favorite by locals voted place, right? My studio got I think fourth or fifth this year for yoga studios. Number two was Hotworks, and they don't employ people to teach yoga classes. It's just an infrared sauna with a video screen in the sauna, and they play a video while being in an infrared sauna. And it solidly beat all other one location mom and pop yoga studios in this area.
Is time a big portion of that? Like it's available for whenever it works for someone?
Or
Yeah,
whenever it works for somebody. Yep.
yeah. And we still have lives to maintain beyond the studio.
Right.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
we have to be offering something else, right? Like if Hotworks is one of my main competitors, say, which
Mhm,
it, I mean, in all sort of forms and honesty, it is a competitor of mine to some degree. Like
mhm,
if Hotworks competes with me and I'm competing with a yoga studio that doesn't have teachers,
mhm.
like what can we be doing or offering that's different?
Yeah, yeah. Do you think, I mean, I feel like right now a lot of people are hungry to learn things. I've recently offered a philosophy only class the last
Ooh.
every other week for the last month, and it has been the most well-performing class I've had in a long time. Like consistent, first time is usually like really great, and then they drop off. It, I think people are hungry for not only like what the philosophy actually has to offer, the community that can come along with it. And I do think this is just this morning. Uh, I had one attendee at my morning class. I'm wondering if it's part of the economic blackout. And and so and she's like, "Can we just talk about philosophy?" And I was like, "Yeah, yes, I'm your person."
Seriously. Thank God you're here.
I did. Yeah. And so that's what we did for the hour and 15 minutes was discuss and this person's a therapist, so like hearing aspects of what they do and aspects of and how these things kind of lean against each other very nicely. And I was like, I wonder if this is something to explore, just offering a philosophy class. Work and I mean, to some extent, I think we're done or lowering at least yoga teacher trainings. I think this is more about personal enrichment more now than it is we need more teachers. Not across the board, but because I do know studios can struggle. It's not sustainable as far as an income goes. So there's often high turnover. But I do think that there is this space of some people wanting to engage in the challenge of trying to learn and even think in a different way, to challenge what are the beliefs I'm holding that are keeping me stuck, and what is the logical reasoning around how I might choose differently.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we're going to get that as succinctly from AI as we can from a human who's put in the time and the effort and can give you an immediate response that you don't have to search for how do I properly ask this question.
Yeah.
Uh, and then you're going to ask it, it's going to give you what you want to hear potentially, not what you need to hear. Um, so there's a lot of variation there that I don't think it can do what a human could do. Not saying we aren't faulted as well. Um,
Of course.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so my favorite thing that comes out of my studio, actually, it's like barely a yoga class, like in the way that people would think of yoga, but I run book clubs. I run like book clubs that are 5 weeks long. They're actually typically well attended. They make the studio plenty of money. And it is just what you said. It is the opportunity for people to discuss, and we're just essentially using the book as a framework, but to discuss deeper concepts. It is, I think you're so spot on when you say there's like a hunger for that kind of connection. Like the idea that you can connect with somebody else in a way that their thoughts and ideas will push you to think differently about your own, but it comes in a productive space. It comes in a space where it doesn't feel threatening, because the internet, like social media, I think can actually do that for us too if we skillfully choose to use it that way. But for a lot of us, that feels very vulnerable. Like, unless you grew up in an Italian American household and you don't mind starting a fight, like I do, like social media becomes fraught. But if you can provide spaces where people can have those deeper conversations, I think you're so correct that AI will never be able to do that.
Yeah. And a book club is great too because you're discussing the author's ideas, not necessarily your own ideas. So it offers
Yeah.
that space between that we don't always get right away when we're questioning our own beliefs or having our own beliefs questioned because it's so
Yeah.
closely bound to our sense of self that it becomes that threat, right? But when you can establish that space, and like the book club does that, then you can start to, well, let's be honest. If you're a reader, you're open to other people's ideas
Yeah.
generally, I think. You're
Yeah.
not always, but like it can, you're already interested in different ways people live or choose to problem solve or whatever. So,
Yeah.
and I think that's the same thing that I'm seeing in like this philosophy course or any, I bring philosophy now in my classes. So I think that's this group of people that are like already wanting to challenge aspects of that um, and to better themselves and maybe even how they are in relationship through the process. And I just don't know if basically two-dimensional AI is going to offer that kind of same feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think it's going to take from us? Because I do see there are things that we talk about as an industry now that in 10 years, I don't think anybody's going to really care about, or we won't be talking about particular things. Like, we're not going to talk about how to build a good sequence. AI can build us a decent sequence. Like, what do you feel like it's going to be taking from us?
Mm. I'm not sure if it, I mean, I do see cons for sure. Like if we're teaching it and the majority of us are immoral that are teaching it, it's going to take the ethical quotients away, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think also that it can take from us that human aspect, our ability to be empathetic, our ability to read how a person is receiving something if we're not actually in a relationship with someone. And if we're just only leaning on, and I think it could create more divide, and I don't think that we need to have any more divide. We need to learn how to respect differences. Um, and to choose to act ethically, like in solidarity with others, even if they think differently. Can we, respect that? Can we let there be something that comes out of that tension that maybe can support all of us, maybe create something beautiful? I don't know if AI can do that for us.
Yeah.
I think it could really cause us to get stuck into rabbit holes, perceptions stuck. Yeah.
I think it takes some of the base layer that we've been stuck on for a really long time off. And I'm here for it, right? Like I feel like 10 years from now, no one's going to really talk about sequencing in the way that they do. Like nobody's holding a like 20-hour build your best yoga sequence course. Like AI will be able to do that for you.
Yeah.
Like I also think 10 years from now, we're probably not going to see things like how is your body alignment in a yoga pose stuff. Like AI will be able to take that from us too. AI will be able to take stuff like, like that kind of like alignment, adjustment, like the real like if we're using the like Panchama Kosha model, like that physical layer that we've been stuck on for
Yeah.
so long. I think, and some people have made their entire livings being really good at just the physical aspect of yoga. Like,
Mhm.
I think that burns in the next 10 years. I love you guys, but please protect yourselves. Do something else. Offer
Yeah.
something else in your classes besides like a kick ass sequence physical workout, because a fake person with a fake voice on the internet will be able to take that from you in the next 10 years, in the next 2 years.
Well, and I mean, this is how I teach anyway. The physical aspect is the applied practice of the philosophical. So,
Yeah.
like when I teach, I don't, you're not a successful teacher, or excuse me, student in my mind if you're just conforming or imitating without having discernment. Success in the practice to me is a student more and more often acting in a responsible way upon the information they're receiving from their body and their breath than somebody that is choosing to get stuck on some mental filter of what a perfect pose looks like and then creating an issue for themselves down the line, or judging others because they are or aren't able to do it. So like I don't think AI is going to be able to add that philosophical aspect to the physical practice because it still looks at it in a colonial way. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and so a push to decolonize your practice, everybody. And your understanding of the philosophy.
Okay. Give me two ways people can do that, real time, real talk right now. How can we decolonize our practice so that we can compete with AI, and because it's the right thing to do? But we'll put it in AI context too.
Yeah, yeah. I right off the bat tell new people that this is an exploration. You're not trying to appease me. This is for you to do it upon the information you're receiving that I don't have access to, and to watch the way that the mind comes up with, I should be able to do it like them. That's that mental samskara, that
Yeah.
filter.
Yeah.
So, and then inviting, not telling people, go into this, go into that, invite them, offer options. This is the very basic level of what the practice is about, is getting beyond the only one way to do something and to see what are the variations on this, and today what is the responsible thing for me to do. And the challenge sometimes is very physical, and sometimes the challenge is more mental, and that's up for each student to figure out for themselves, not for us to do for them.
Good answer. Stop the hierarchy stuff. We are not a hierarchical model tradition. I know we love to think that we are, but we absolutely are not. That is this awesome, awesome first step.
Yeah, yeah. It's beautiful to watch people develop that over time because it has to transfer out into their lives, right? And it's coming to this as an oldest daughter who like want
Yes.
wants to follow the rules and
Yeah.
not create trouble. I was not paying attention to myself for and what was responsible for me for a very long time. And so like why do I want to propel that in others? I want them to take back their lives for themselves for the right reasons, to be
Yeah.
sovereign and to do that in solidarity with people. Let's lift all the ships. So, yeah.
Yeah. Let's lift all the ships. Let's do that. Okay, so do you see AI as something that can be complementary to our practices and teachings, or do you see it as something that's just like a tool to put off to the side that we just are like gonna use it whenever we need? Like how do you see our relationship with AI happening?
I think it can be complementary. I don't think it's something that we have to implement all the time. And I don't think it's something that we should rest on. I think that we need to rest on, that responsible sense of self. Because once we're doing that, we're just handing our ability to reason things out and own our choices. We're just handing it over. So I think it's something that can complement, but it has to be done with discernment. And we can't just assume it's right. It's
How do we get that discernment?
so, I mean, we have to be able to take the time to sit back and think about it, right? And research it and explore around it. And you know what? I'm very often my own devil's advocate when it comes to things. Like I will purposely
Yeah.
research the opposite viewpoint of what I have
Mhm.
so that I can have a better understanding or viewpoints of the thing than just getting stuck in. Well, and because that's really then allowing me to not have a bias, but to be able to better critique these things. And so we have to kind of play the devil's advocate, like, and ask the question, is this true? Is it factual? Is it ethical? What other viewpoints might be available here? And they all have their place and time. And also, we're not looking to suppress or eliminate any of the options. We're just trying to figure out whatever the right option is, which is the sovereign option that's
Yeah.
ethical at any given time. So we still have to do that. It's not going to do it for us. And that takes time and space. And yeah, and people have to be willing. That's the other thing. They have to want to do it. They have to want to be learners. And I don't know if some people are open to that. They just kind of want to be told and just kind of copy and paste. And that's essentially what samskaras are.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to let this be a dynamic application of choice rather than just a habit.
Final question. How do you see us changing in the next 10 years in the industry, specifically in relationship to tech and AI? How do we change? What's different then from now?
I mean, I think we've already seen some of that with COVID, right? The way that we're not gathering for YTTs in some situations, or are learning with teachers across the globe. So I think in a way, it's allowing for potentially a more cohesive understanding, but that's not about always the same application, right? Like whenever I'm sharing the principles of yoga philosophy with students and they're asking kind of about application things, and I'm like, this is your job to decide that. I can tell you what I would do, but that doesn't mean it's right for you. And so I think that we have this potential to, you know, get a more objective understanding of yoga in all of its many capacities. To But then also I think it's interesting because I think especially in the US we're going to be drilled down more into small community support systems right now. And so I think that the yoga space might be the space people go to for support that they're not going to get on the internet, and that's a local, tending to the very local needs kind of support. And so I think that's going to be really crucial, mutual aid type things and whatnot. Yeah. So maybe just more of the same, but some shifts for sure. I think that we just kind of have to dynamically meet the moment as the moment comes to us. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry I don't have a straight up answer on that. Shooting in the dark.
I don't think there is a straight up answer. I think it's important that we ask the question. I think it's important that we have the conversations about how we do potentially shift and what AI and tech can do for us in the next 10 years and what we hold on to because that's the core of who we are and what we can let go of because that was window dressing for a really long time.
Yeah. I mean, both aspects, whether it's in person or online, have potential for accessibility in ways the other does.
Yeah.
So I think that's huge. And like I have clients that both do online and in person. Like they just figure out what works for them on whatever day. And so yeah, which is pretty cool, really. I mean,
think so too.
Yeah. So
Speaking of, how do people find you, Miss Mandi King?
um, I'm available on the socials. It's Mandy with an I, not Barry Manilow's Mandy. And although that was the inspiration, um, for sure. Yeah, what? And I have access. Yeah. And we don't talk about that much. Um, and I do have a website up and running now, and I have some stuff I share on Medium. But all that's accessed through, you can find that information on Facebook and Instagram. And then also, I've been doing some newsletters since just before Christmas. And it's just been an opportunity to kind of share contemplations on yoga philosophy as well as swadhyaya questions, opportunities for introspection. And so just kind of a way to let me get that writing nerdship out there. And
Subscribe to our newsletter, y'all. The link is going to be in the comments.
thank
Mandy,
you.
thank you so much for having this conversation with me.
Oh, thank you, Rebecca. And thank you for all that you do for this industry and as a friend, and appreciate.
Thank you so much for this conversation, Mandy. Here are our key takeaways. First, okay, oh my gosh, is AI reflective of our samskaras? Let's talk about that for a sec. No, seriously, you guys, email me your thoughts. Rebecca at workinginyoga.com. Mandy and I cover this, but what a good question, right? And do we think AI needs to liberate itself? This is like one of those deep yoga philosophy questions that we should probably like brew a pot of tea and talk about until 2 a.m., right? Well, I actually asked ChatGPT to weigh in on both samskaras and liberation. And here is what it said. I love that it's talking to me conversationally, but here we go. That's such a compelling and nuanced angle, applying the concept of samskaras or habitual patterns, imprints, or conditioning to AI. If AI is created by humans and humans operate with samskaras, then AI, by extension, inherits those samskaras through the biases, data, and frameworks that we feed into it. Here are a few key philosophical points that stand out. Number one, AI as a reflection of human samskaras. Samskaras shape our perceptions, decisions, and unconscious patterns. Since AI is trained on human generated data, it absorbs and perpetuates our biases, belief systems, and limitations. AI doesn't have an independent consciousness, but it does process and repeat learned patterns, much like an ingrained samskara repeating itself until consciously rewritten. Number two, can AI have karma? If karma is the accumulation of action and consequence, then AI's karma could be seen in its outputs and how they shape the world. AI doesn't act with intention, but its actions have ripple effects, amplifying existing biases, influencing human behavior, and shaping industries like yoga. Ethical AI development could be seen as a kind of yoga practice, an effort to refine and clear negative samskaras from the systems we create. Number three, AI, free will, and consciousness. In yoga philosophy, we strive to cultivate awareness beyond conditioned patterns, samskaras, moving towards liberation, that's moksha. AI, however, lacks self-awareness and doesn't evolve in the way human consciousness does. The question then becomes, if AI is built on our conditioned patterns, can it ever be truly neutral? Or does it always carry the vasanas, or deep-seated tendencies of its creators? Number four, the role of yoga in AI development. If AI reflects human samskaras, should yogic philosophy be part of AI ethics? Could mindfulness, self-awareness, and ethical considerations guide how we create and implement AI? There's an argument that those designing AI should engage in inner work or self-study, we call that svadhyaya, and ethical practice, the yamas and niyamas, to prevent harmful biases from embedding themselves in our technological future. The concept of enlightenment in yoga, often referred to as moksha or samadhi, signifies a profound state of self-realization, liberation from the cycle of birth and rebirth, and then unity within the ultimate reality. This state is intrinsically tied to consciousness, self-awareness, and the transcendence of the individual ego, all qualities deeply rooted in human experience and subjective awareness. In conclusion, enlightenment as understood in yogic philosophy is a deeply personal and conscious journey towards self-realization and unity with the ultimate reality, whatever that might be for you, friends. Since AI lacks consciousness and subjective awareness, it cannot embark on this journey or attain enlightenment. Therefore, AI cannot achieve enlightenment more efficiently or at all, as it fundamentally lacks the conscious essence required for such an experience. Whew. Okay. There you have it, my friends. AI itself says it cannot be enlightened. We're going to have to take it at its word, right? Next week on the podcast, in this AI and tech series, we talk with Justin D'Angelo, a yoga teacher and yoga therapist in the Midwest, and he talks about all of the practical everyday uses for AI for yoga professionals. You're going to love it. And I think you might come away with some new ideas about how we can leverage tech to our advantage. Until then, I am forever grateful for our break time together. Let's finish up our cup of tea and get back to work. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you on the water cooler next time.